Welcome to the Christian Business Concepts with your host, Harold Milby. Christian Business Concepts is dedicated to guiding companies and business owners in becoming effective, efficient, and successful through God's Word and godly principles. Now, here's your host, Harold Milby.
Thanks, Kelly, and welcome everyone to this week's Christian Business Concepts podcast. I truly hope today's podcast will encourage you, enlighten you, and empower you. You know, I'm your host, Harold Milby, and it's our goal each week here at CBC to help people to utilize biblical principles that will help them find true success, true godly success. And, I know the world has a definition of success, but God's got a better definition of success. And that's what we're about. We're about helping people find godly success, and especially Christian businesses, Christian leaders. We are looking to help bring godly success to them. And we believe it's important because in the day that we're living, we believe that business, Christian business especially, is so important and can be so impactful. And we want to make sure that we're helping all of you that are out there that have Christian businesses, or you're involved in some way in a business. Maybe it's not even a Christian business and you don't own that business, but you run a department or you have a very important leadership role and you want to try to bring godly principles to bear in that business. Well, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're about. And so anyway, we're so glad that you've joined us today, and I'm always humbled by the people and where they are around the world that listen to the CBC podcast. And before we get started today, I want to give a big shout out to Frankfurt, Germany, for having so many downloads last week. We appreciate all of you that are there in Frankfurt, Germany. We thank you for listening to the podcast and hope that it's a blessing to you. So be sure to share this podcast today with 4 or 5 other people and help us grow the CBC family. We greatly appreciate that. Now, today I want to talk about some modern challenges that Christian business leaders are facing today. And I know that all business is facing challenges, but as Christians and as a Christian business, it can be even more difficult. And Christian business leaders they encounter a whole myriad of challenges that are unique to a very rapidly changing and very increasingly complex, I guess, business environment. And these unique challenges are going to test our faith. They're going to test our values and our leadership abilities. And for me, I think it's important. I think it's essential for leaders to navigate these challenges with, number one, with integrity, with godly wisdom and grace, in order really to uphold our beliefs while we're achieving success in whatever that organization is that we're a part of. And in order to successfully navigate these challenges, I think that we're going to have to be proactive. We're going to have to be adaptable and equipped with all the needed skills and strategies. And a lot of the things I'm going to share today deserve its own podcast, just for that particular topic. But we're going to cover some things that I think will be helpful. And I want you to know that I believe that God has put in us everything that we need to be able to deal with challenges. 1 John 5:4, it says, "And whatsoever is born of God overcometh the world, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our faith." So I believe it's important that we understand our faith and that we stand strong in our faith and as we overcome these challenges. And I believe that God has equipped us as believers to be overcomers, to be triumphant, and to be more than conquerors. And so let's dive into some of these challenges. These are the top 10 challenges I think that leaders face today. I'm sure there's more, but these are the ones that really jump out to me. So number one is regulatory compliance and ethical dilemmas. Christian leaders, we're going to encounter ethical dilemmas in the workplace, such as maybe decisions that conflict with our values, or increasing pressure to comply with a lot of complex regulations that the government imposes. A lot of times these can become contrary to our ethical values. Also, there's lots of data privacy laws, there's environmental laws and regulations, and non-compliance to these can really result in legal penalties, and damage to our reputation and a loss of trust. And so we've got to balance these ethical considerations with our business objectives. And when we do that, it can be really challenging. So what we need to do is make sure that we clearly communicate what your ethical standards and expectations are. So all of your employees, even your customers, even your vendors, they need to know what your ethical standards and expectations are. So you're going to have to train your employees. You're going to have to train your customers and your vendors on these ethical guidelines and these principles. And then you've got to prioritize the ethics and integrity in your decision making. So don't just make decisions and then hope that they follow along with your ethical, guidelines. Make sure that when you're making decisions, that your decisions are actually in line with what your ethical standards are. And that's got to be the forefront of your mind. And then you need to make sure that you lead by example. So if you're trying to comply to these regulatory compliance or regulatory rules and standards that the government has established, you've got to lead by example. Don't let the employees or your customers or vendors see that you're trying to, skirt the law. You need to lead by example. And then you need to make sure that you stay informed. You've got to be informed about relevant laws and regulations that impact your company's industry and operations. And if you don't know, then you hire somebody that does know, or you pay for a service that does know. And one thing that jumps out at me is there's so many companies out there that I have been around and I listen to and I watch that are definitely not in compliance with HR laws. And those can be very stiff penalties if you're found breaking HR laws. And a lot of people say, well, nobody knows. Well, nobody knows until they do. And then where will you be? So you need to get out ahead of that. Now, if you're a small business, there's all kinds of services out there that you can pay a monthly fee, and they'll take care of all your HR issues, make sure that you're HR compliant. And so you need to make sure that you get with the right people. If you can't afford that, then maybe you can find someone in your network of people that you know that has a little bit more expertise in that particular area. If it's HR, then fine, environmental, whatever it may be. And then, ask them if they would be willing to help you. I like what Mark Twain said one time. He said, right is right, wrong is wrong. And a body ain't got no business doing wrong when he ain't ignorant and knows better. So I think that's important. I think that's very, very important. So number 2, work-life balance. I think that is a very big thing right now. I think there's lots of people who struggle with this. So having a work-life balance, striking a balance between work and family, your personal faith commitments, it can be really hard, for Christian leaders in business, especially when you have a lot of demanding work schedules and responsibilities. Dolly Parton said one time, she said, never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. And I think that's important because, if you have children, they're never going to remember how hard you worked to put food on the table. What they're going to remember is that you weren't around. And your kids are only going to be kids for a certain period of time. And so you need to make sure that you put in, first of all, an intentional effort. It has to be intentional. If you're going to have a work-life balance, you're going to make it's going to have to be an intentional effort on your part. You've got to make plans to make sure that you have a good balance. You have to make plans. Next thing is you've got to get good at time management. There's a lot of people out there, they're great and they're brilliant in business, but they're horrible with regards to time management. If you're a bigger business and you have a secretary, work with her. Work with an administrative assistant. Help them to help you balance your schedule and keep a good tight rein on your time. So time management. Next is self-awareness. You've got to be self-aware. You've got to look at yourself and make that decision and say, hey, am I doing a good job here or not? And be willing to grade yourself. But you've got to be self-aware. And then the next thing you've got to do is you've got to set some boundaries. You have to set boundaries. You have to say, look, if your work is interfering with church and what you're wanting to do at church in your volunteer time, you're just going to have to say, look, I'm not going to do business on this day because this is my commitment that I've made to the church, whether it be Sunday, whether it be Wednesday, whether it be any day of the week, it doesn't matter. But you've got to set some boundaries. And next, you've got to prioritize. You got to prioritize the things that you do, because I can promise you won't be able to do everything that you have on your to-do list. So you've got to learn how to prioritize every day. And then be sure that you purposely schedule downtime, because you need to prioritize your own well-being. You've got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and most important, spiritually. So you've got to schedule that time, block that time out. Practice time blocking, and make sure that you utilize that. There's an author and businesswoman by the name of Betsy Jacobson, and she said one time, balance is not better time management, but better boundary management. And I think that's true. I think it's not just about time management, but you've got to establish those boundaries. Mark 6:31 said that, and Jesus is speaking, he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a little while. For there were many people who were continually coming and going, and they could not even find time to eat." So again, even Jesus recognized the importance of having a work-life balance. They needed to take time for themselves. And the ministry had a lot of demands on them. And so he recognized it, and he told them, he said, look, you got to get away. Get out to a secluded place. You got to rest and recharge. And so he recognized this work-life balance. All right, number 3, workplace diversity. That's a real challenge today. So many people are watching. They're all looking, and there's a lot of people that have the wrong idea about diversity in the workplace and what's required and what's not required. But we need to look at that. It's a real challenge because managing a diverse workforce with differing beliefs and differing backgrounds and different values, they're going to present challenges for Christian leaders. I mean, and especially when you're trying to promote a culture of inclusiveness and respect, and especially when there's organizations out there trying to force their views upon us. Stephen Covey said that strength lies in differences, not in similarities. And I believe that. I believe that you want different people that work for you. But be aware, be aware and make sure you have written diversity and anti-discrimination policies in place, because there are certain laws. You need to know the law and know what the law says you can and cannot do. Now, there's lots of people who have the opinion that there's certain laws that tell them that they can't share their faith, that they can't let people know they're a Christian business. And that's incorrect. You have a legal right to those things. And, we did a podcast a few months ago talking about that and talking about what the laws are. And so it's important that you know what the law says, but then you've got to know your rights. You've got to know what your rights are. And so make sure you know your rights. And then within your organization, you've got to provide diversity training, because some people don't understand it. They don't understand how to treat differing people. They don't understand how to treat somebody who comes from a different background, whether it be socioeconomic or some it could be social. It could be all kinds of differences in people, even personalities. But you've got to provide training. And even if you're an employee of one, you've got to have some training. And there's a lot of things out there on the internet that can help you. But don't be afraid to hire people based upon your core values. That's different. We're not talking about anti-diversity here. We're talking about your culture. And don't be afraid to hire people, based upon your core values. And then make sure you create a culture of acceptance of people with different personalities, experience, etc. You got to make sure you create that culture. All right, let's move on. Number 4, pressure from the cancel culture. We hear a lot about that right now, that people are getting canceled and that whole thing. The cancel culture will try and get you to compromise your values or your beliefs in order to achieve certain business goals or secure contracts or maintain positive relationships with people. So this cancel culture is out there. And there's a lot of people that bow their knee to this. There's a lot of people out there that bow their knee to the cancel culture. And I think, number 1, you've got to stay grounded to biblical principles. And it doesn't matter what these people come and say to you. They can come and say, if you don't do this, then we're going to make sure we destroy your business, or we're going to make sure people boycott your business. It doesn't matter. We can look at large companies out there that we've seen in the news, such as Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby, and they have tried to be canceled. But, when you stick to your core values, when you stick to your beliefs and your values, let me tell you something. God has his hand upon you and your business. So stay grounded to these biblical principles and maintain transparency. Be authentic. I mean, that's okay. But you've got to cultivate this culture of respect and inclusion. That's important. And then you lead with integrity and humility and compassion. And then they can do whatever they want to do. They can say whatever they want to say. But you've got to stay true, because there's going to be pressure. We are faced in this society today with so much more pressure to perform in a certain way, and there's not a lot of acceptance of any other view other than their own. Romans 12:2 in the Amplified Version says, "And do not be conformed to this world any longer with its superficial values and customs. Be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by the renewing of your mind, focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes, so that you may prove for yourselves what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect in his plan and purpose for you." So he says to us, we're not to be conformed to this world. You don't have to give in to the pressure from the cancel culture. You don't have to give in. And you don't have to worry about what they're going to do or that they're going to cancel you. You're not going to have to worry about that. The Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare under Lyndon B. Johnson said this, and my goodness, he could be living in today's day and time, and this quote is very much apropos for what we're living in. And he said, "The creative individual has the capacity to free himself from the web of social pressures in which the rest of us are caught. He is capable of questioning the assumptions that the rest of us accept." So we need to be that creative person. We need to have that capacity and to free ourselves from the social pressures that are out there today. All right, let's move on. So next is talent management and employee engagement. That's one of the things that I've noticed in the past 5 years has been the fact that employee engagement has been a very tough thing, attracting and retaining top talent. That's a major challenge for business leaders today in today's competitive market. There's a lot of creative things that you can do. Employees really they're out there and they're looking for more than just a paycheck. They want meaningful work. They want opportunities for growth and development, and they want a positive work environment. And in today's society, it's becoming more and more difficult to find those who have that strong work ethic as well. So you want to make sure that you encourage open dialogue and open communication within your company and organization. That's important. And then you want to set goals to manage your employees and to have better employee engagement. You need to set goals of what that looks like to you. And then you want to offer competitive salaries, but I'm going to tell you that the higher salary is not always what gets people to come to work for you. There's other things like benefits packages too, and a lot of these other things that we've talked about, having a positive work environment and opportunities for growth. And then you need to provide opportunities for employees to grow and develop their skills through training, professional development programs. You've got to do that, and then create a positive work culture that values diversity, inclusion, and work-life balance. That's important. Jack Welch, who used to be the CEO of General Electric, GE there, he said that there are only 3 measurements that tell you nearly everything you need to know about your organization's overall performance: employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and cash flow. It goes without saying that no company, small or large, can win over the long run without energized employees who believe in the mission and understand how to achieve it. That's important. You've got to be able to engage your employees. Next, market competition. There's more market competition today in business than we've ever seen, and it's only going to get more competitive. And navigating these competitive marketplaces and yet still maintain your ethical, values and in your integrity, those can be challenging for Christian leaders. And so you want to make sure that you do some positive things here. First of all, you can research your competition. Don't stick your head in the sand. I've had business owners look at me and say, well, we don't talk about the competition. I'm not going to compare myself to them. We don't care what they're doing. Well, you better care what they're doing. Because if you don't, you may wake up one day and either they've bought you out or they've sold you out. So in other words, you're not going to have a business any longer. So make sure, I'm not saying that you follow and you do whatever your competition does. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you need to be smart enough to know that you need to research your competition, see what they're good at, see what they're not good at, but don't just hide from it. You need to recognize it. And then you need to then continually review your products or your services and make sure they're still effective. Because what worked one time and what worked last year may not be working this year. So you have to continually review that, continually review your products and services, and then do some market research. Listen to your customers. Send surveys to certain customers. There's great tools out there to do that don't cost you anything. Google comes to mind right off the bat. They've got some great tools to do that. And you got to listen to them and know what they're wanting. You got to know what they want. You may be trying to sell your customers something that they're not even looking for. And then make sure that you can differentiate your brand. What is your value proposition? Not what your customers' value proposition, what are your competitors, but what's your value proposition? What makes you unique? What makes you different? If you're selling a widget, why is your widget better than everybody else's widget? And make sure that you can articulate those differences. And then make sure that you focus on the customer experience. Focus on their experience, right? Okay, next, public perception. Managing a public perception and reputation is so important today because of social media. There's so many controversies and conflicts that are related to faith-based decisions, and so you've got to make sure that you can delegate your tasks to your leaders effectively so that they are very careful and that you can manage your public perception. So first of all, you need to utilize social media. If you're not using social media, you're making a mistake. Social media isn't just about individuals, it's about business. It's a big deal. It's become a big deal. And I've had so many CEOs tell me, well, if I can't see how it's going to make me money, then I don't want to use it. Social media will make you money in the long run, but it protects your public perception. It helps to guard it, and it helps you to write the story. And so it's important that you watch what you put on social media, both personally and in your business accounts. But you need to make sure that you're posting things on social media about your business and that are very positive. And you just use it to create positive brand awareness. And so you need to develop a digital marketing plan. Make sure that you're set up and that you have a Google My Business account, and make sure you manage that. You know, Benjamin Disraeli said one time, he said, what we call public opinion is generally public sentiment. And so you need to manage that. You need to make sure, because that can make or break a company. It really can. All right, number 8, rapid technological advances. You know, one of the biggest challenges facing business leaders today is keeping up with the rapid pace of technology and how fast it's changing and how fast it's advancing. You know, constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. And businesses that fail to adapt, you just kind of risk falling behind your competitors. And to overcome this challenge, I think leaders have got to stay informed about the latest technological trends and developments. Be willing to invest in new technologies that can help you, especially if it can help you streamline your operations or improve your efficiencies. Make sure that you do that. It always surprises me at the number of people that I'm sitting in their office and they get a phone call, and it's a cold call from somebody trying to sell them some kind of new technology, and they don't even set up a time to listen to them. If you can do it in 20 minutes or less, you need to take the time to listen, because sometimes you're missing the biggest and best next thing that could really be a help to your business, and you don't even give them a time of day. So I think that you've got to be able to look at that. You've got to be able to look at that. You know, General Omar Bradley, he said, if we can continue to develop our technology without wisdom or prudence, our servant may prove to be our executioner. So I think it's important that we don't let the technology run us, but we run technology. I think that's important. Even in 2 Chronicles 26, verses 13 through 15, in the Amplified Version, it talks about technology, because it says this, under their command was an army of 307,000 who could wage war with great power to help the king against the enemy. Moreover, Uzziah prepared shields and spears, helmets, body armor, bows, and sling stones for the entire army. In Jerusalem, he made machines of war invented by skillful men to put on the towers and on the corner battlements for the purpose of shooting arrows and large stones. And his fame spread far, for he was marvelously helped until he was strong. So keep in mind that even then they were utilizing technology. That was the technology of their day. He was on the cutting edge by building these machines that could shoot multiple arrows and launch large stones at the same time. So you need to encourage continuous learning. You need to foster this culture of innovation so that you're looking for innovation, that you're looking for technology, and spend some time with these folks. Next, you need to be looking at the challenge of cybersecurity. That is becoming a huge deal. And while the increasing reliance on digital technologies and data are there, the cybersecurity threats have become such a major concern for businesses all over the world. There's data breaches, there's ransomware attacks, there's cyber threats. Just recently on my Mac computer, I got this thing that said, oh, don't turn your computer off. Whatever you do, you've got a virus and you need to call this number. And it's absolutely a scam. The first thing you want to do is turn your computer off and reboot it. And so you have to be careful. There's viruses out there. There's phishing where people are trying to get information off your computer. There's malware and password hacking. So you need to make sure that you conduct regular cybersecurity assessments and audits identify your vulnerabilities. You need to invest in some cybersecurity training for you and your employees to raise awareness and make sure that you implement really, I guess, multi-layered security systems. Make sure you have encryption and firewalls and intrusion detection systems. That's becoming easy to get to now. Christopher Wray of the FBI said what was once a comparatively minor threat, people hacking for fun or for bragging rights, has turned into full-blown economic espionage and extremely lucrative cybercrime. And he is absolutely right. So that's a very serious challenge we have to take into effect or take into consideration. And lastly, changing consumer behavior and expectations. So consumer behavior is constantly evolving. You know, they're driven by factors like technological advances, social trends, economic conditions, and businesses that really fail to adapt to those changing consumer expectations. You know, you could risk losing market share, you could risk losing relevance, and to overcome this challenge, you've got to stay attuned to these customer trends and what their preferences are. And that's why social media is so important. And so make sure, again, conduct market research, use data analytics and get your customer feedbacks. Foster a customer-focused culture. Make sure that you're out there creating customer delight. And, make sure that your employees feel empowered to prioritize this information. You know, Peter Drucker said, quality in a service or product is not what you put into it, it's what the client or customer gets out of it. So make sure that you understand that. So I believe that Christian business leaders can overcome these challenges, but you've got to lean on your faith. You've got to seek discernment and guidance. I believe that you've got to lead, but you've got to lead with purpose. You've got to lead with compassion. You've got to embrace these ethical leadership practices, and you've got to communicate, and you've got to nurture your personal faith. And I believe that by aligning your values with your actions, I believe that you can navigate challenges, and I think you can navigate them with integrity and grace and wisdom. And I believe that when you do that, I think you'll inspire others to follow your example. And I think you need to continue to foster this culture of trust and respect and excellence in the workplace. Lord, I thank you for all you're doing in the lives of those who've downloaded and listened to this podcast, and by helping them overcome the challenges that we've discussed today with your wisdom and your principles. Lord, I pray today, let them always look to you for answers, and let your words always be in the forefront of their minds. In the name of Jesus, amen. Well, I'm sorry to say that's all we've got time for today, but until next time, I want you to remember Jesus is Lord, and he wants you blessed.
Thank you for tuning into this week's Christian Business Concepts podcast. Go to ChristianBusinessConcepts.com for more information and resources. Be sure to check out other podcasts that will help you take your business and your personal life to a whole new level of success.